welcome to the Third Degree Masonic Podcast, where we are always on the level. Today I have a very interesting guest, an old friend of mine, and a very hardworking Mason for Northwest Ohio. I would like to introduce you, Brother Ricky Staler. Brother Staler, say hello.
Oh, hello, listeners.
Brother Staler, how long have you been a Mason?
Oh, gosh. Let's see, it's 2024 now. I believe I petitioned in 2015. So about 9 years.
9 years. I think you and I are just about equal there. I think maybe I've got a year ahead of you.
Yeah.
Not that it matters in the grand scheme of everything. We're all going to get our pins at the same time. Anyway, your home lodge is Genoa Lodge. Why did you pick Genoa Lodge to be your home for your Masonic career?
Well, it's actually more of a funny story, or I guess maybe a more interesting story. I originally petitioned for Northern Light Lodge in Maumee, Ohio, and that was in 2015, and I eventually received full rights as a Mason in 2016 after a really interesting summer for me. And I was there for a couple of years until another friend of ours, someone near and dear to our hearts, actually kind of consistently pestered me until I agreed to swap lodges because movers and shakers were coming to Genoa and things were happening.
I think I already know who you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Probably doesn't hurt that everybody we knew from growing up is, here more or less. He even talked me into coming back eventually.
Yeah.
So why did you initially petition to Northern Light rather than coming straight to Genoa like some of the other guys we know?
Well, for me, it's a little bit of a coincidence, seeing as when I joined DeMolay, which was what kind of got me into Masonry later on in life anyway, it was actually you. You had kind of pushed me a little bit to kind of start moving in that direction. It's something I'd planned on doing regardless, but it wasn't something I was necessarily in a great rush for. And just like with DeMolay, you showed up at my door and you were telling me, all right, well, it's time to get started on this.
So I bullied you.
A little bit.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take the credit for bullying you into doing this.
Hey, it's one way that we show love.
So you were a DeMolay as well, correct?
That is correct.
What was your experience with DeMolay?
Oh, gosh. That's a hard question to answer. There's so many things that come to mind relatively quickly for me. DeMolay was a big part of developing as a young man and developing like who I wanted to be, who I thought I was at the moment and who I thought I could be, depending on more experiences, more understanding of things, friendships. The variety of things that we learned in DeMolay were kind of along the lines of social networking, but less focused on the aspect of what kind of product can you push for me that I can talk about on my podcast or do an ad for you about for something else, but more along the lines of what kind of individuals do you want to surround yourself with? What does it mean to really be a responsible individual? In DeMolay, we have the 7 main tenets, and all of these tenets are something that eventually come into play for, at least in my opinion, any young person who's becoming an adult or becoming more mature or figuring out who and what they want to be. So for me, DeMolay was mostly just kind of a exploratory mission, just figuring out who I wanted to be, finding out what I could do, what I couldn't do, and trying to apply that into growth.
Seems like when we were DeMolays, the fraternity kind of taught us a lot of the skills that we use in our day-to-day life, leadership, how to run committees, how to work as a team, being able to rely on someone else, not just in a very surface level way, but knowing that these people that you're doing this with have your back and will help you to the very end.
Yeah, that kind of delegation of tasks or responsibility is really important, I think, because there's so many people who walk through life thinking that everything is on their own shoulders. One of the important things that I got out of DeMolay was something along the lesson of you reap what you sow. You put in the work and the effort, and you will have other individuals also putting in work and effort, and together you will reap crop or a harvest that you not get anywhere near by yourself. So being able to have individuals that you can trust and individuals that have similar ideas of either what's expected or what's valued and what's prioritized really helps with being able to trust them to get a certain task done. Or being said, hey, as a group, we need to do all these different things. Okay, well, you three do this, us two over here will do that, and the 5 other guys will work on making sure that, everybody's got everything else covered.
I agree. I feel that a lot of the things that DeMolay taught us really summed up. I mean, I couldn't sum it up any better myself. Is there any particular thing in DeMolay that you learned that really stuck home with you? Like, even to this day, you feel kind of makes a piece of your moral character?
Oh, yeah. I would say for me, it's reinforcing the idea of that chosen family. I did not have the greatest childhood. There are things that are just outside of our spheres of control. And because of that, there's a lot of times, especially when we are younger, we are children, we are teenagers, we are reacting to a lot of things, and we're not very involved in the decision-making process, or very involved in the idea of what it takes to improve a situation. For me, my family, by blood growing up on one side of it anyway, were not very good individuals, a lot of bad modeled behavior, a lot of individuals who did not do well when it comes to meeting the expectations of society. So when I came to Genoa and eventually joined DeMolay, there was a lot of supporting the idea of making or associating close bonds with other individuals by choice or by maybe not necessarily putting a lot of effort into a vetting process. But with DeMolay, we all made the same vows at the same altar on the same Bible. Like, there are things that we all said, okay, we all agree to this standard, this expectation, these values. And that is something that really helped to reinforce for me what it would be like to be able to choose individuals to surround myself with as if they were family. That kind of support was instrumental for my growth as a young man.
I agree.
I think we both know how obnoxious I was at the beginning.
Well, we certainly, you and I may not be quote unquote blood brothers, but did we sure fight like we were. I think you and I poked at each other so much. It wasn't until we finally figured out that if we worked together, we could do anything. There wasn't anything that we couldn't accomplish if we worked together. But it started out kind of rocky. I think that's just because you had a different way of going about things than I did, and I was so unable to see. I was unable to accept the fact that someone doing something a way that I don't do it was just unacceptable for me. But then, as time grew on, we got to a point where I was like, you know what? We're going to go with Ricky's method of doing this. And it worked. You can't beat it. So I have always appreciated that I've always had you to bounce ideas off of. And every once in a while, sometimes you got to flip the table.
Yeah, sometimes that other side of the perspective can be really beneficial because we all have a different walk through life. And even if it starts with 2 little grizzly bears picking at each other and constantly fighting over random different pieces of scraps or food or attention from others, like it's all something that developed into a really strong bond between the two of us. I'm very thankful for.
I know that we grew exponentially, even though we argued every other day about who was better at Halo. And
I would just like to say, for the record, I still feel like I am the better one at Halo.
I will agree to you this day on recording that you are better at me than Halo, and you always have.
Oh. That's okay. You're better at me in other areas.
Exactly. And I'll take that. So, you were in DeMolay. We grew up, and you actually received the Chevalier from the Order of DeMolay.
That is correct.
Just like me and Gabriel. How did you feel when you received that award?
I was a little taken aback because at the time I was not as active in the fraternity as I was previously. It was something that had kind of come to me out of the blue, unexpected, and so it was a little bit of time before it set in and I realized how real this was, because it's a very prestigious thing for us in DeMolay, and it's There's no one singular thing you can do to earn this award. There is no project to do. There's no paperwork to fill out. There's no expectations to meet. It's just a matter of we recognize that you have done so much in service to the fraternity, or if you've done some things that we couldn't expect from somebody else. And I think one of the things that makes DeMolay so unique is the Chevalier degree, because the Chevalier degree is, or the Chevalier medallion and cords is something that can be given to individuals for doing something that only they can do for DeMolay.
And it's kind of a strange experience because, you know, we joined, I think I was 12 or 13. I think you were probably pretty close to that age. Probably.
I think I was 14.
And we grew up with the mentors that we had, the guys that were older than us, the Alex Diatoris, the Tim Williams, you know, those guys, the Nick Olmsteads,
Price Murphy,
they all had the Chevalier, and they were shining examples of what DeMolays should be. And for you to get that letter in the mail or that phone call kind of makes you step back and think a little bit, like, am I truly worthy? What did I do? What did I do that was so different? I almost, the first couple of years after I got it, almost had imposter syndrome. Like, I didn't do anything special. There's probably a million guys like me in the organization who just showed up, did the best they could, and did what they thought was right for their brothers and for the fraternity. Why are you honoring me?
Yeah, I had the same thoughts where it was like, this is like so out of the blue, so like kind of surreal. Was there something specific, something recent? Was there something relevant in a conversation to me in some way, shape, or form? Like, is there something that just recently happened that pegged me and somebody was thinking of, yeah, you know, like it's about time this happened or something along those lines? But I think it's one of those things where if and when it does happen, it's just kind of like reinforcing the idea behind what it means to be part of the fraternity in general, which is, again, we all have or agree to the same values, the same expectations. And even though there's only things that I can do for DeMolay from me or from my perspective, there's only things that you can do for DeMolay from your perspective, from your experiences. That's one of the beautiful things about it. And I think the Chevalier degree really embodies that.
And I like to think that we took those values and we brought them into Masonry. I mean, I know that I feel like I almost got a running start in this fraternity. I already knew I didn't know exactly how the meetings worked, but I assumed they were pretty close. I already knew how to do ritual work. I already knew how a committee was ran. I already knew about the charitable things that would be expected from me, all the hard work. How about you? Did you kind of have that same feeling, almost like we had not a leg up because it's not a competition, but almost a familiarity?
Yeah, there was a lot of familiarity. And for me, like, I think my first thoughts were, it's almost like the natural evolution of like a Pokemon kind of deal. I know it's a little bit of a silly metaphor, but with Masonry, there's, I think, a little bit more in terms of expectations and a little bit more in terms of the things that you can do to kind of reap what you sow in that fraternity. But between the committees that we've been on, between knowing what it means to be able to speak in a public space, knowing what it means to be a leader or at least take the role of being a leader, knowing what it means to be able to organize others or work on task management and things of that nature, a lot of the things that would have been taught or learned through Lodge, we had already kind of had taught and learned to us in DeMolay, and I think we definitely had a leg up in that regard.
So after we were in DeMolay, you went to college, and what is your degree in?
Psychology.
Psychology. And if I'm correct, your specialty is working with children.
Yes.
Why is that?
A lot of that is because of the self-awareness of like my childhood and feeling that a lot of kids don't have enough support or don't have enough advocacy. And then in my career so far, I've also been learning to add to that there's a lot of parents who just don't have enough information or aren't prepared in a way that's more beneficial to be a parent, to what it means to prioritize the variety of things you have to do to be a parent. Being a parent's a hard job. There are few jobs I think would compare to being as difficult as it is to be a parent. but also with DeMolay, because in my experiences with DeMolay, I truly valued having a space to be able to grow, to recognize opportunities for personal growth eventually. Because like I said, I think you can agree early on, I was very obnoxious in my friendship with you. I didn't have a lot of friends before coming to Genoa. And then I had the opportunity to have so many good friends around me and so many good people around me to help build me up and support me. And I was a late bloomer in many ways. But
Well, and it was okay to fail in DeMolay.
yeah, failures can teach us more than successes can.
So when it comes to your occupation with working with children, with working with the public, do you feel that Masonry has given you any tools that kind of help you with that?
I think Masonry has. Masonry, we talk about essentially two types of Masons, the operative and, what we do in Lodge. So the operative Mason is the individual who's out there laying brick by brick the foundation for a building or a home, or trying to put something together with raw building materials. Then there's what we do. We talk about a lot of the symbolism behind the ancient Masons and what it meant to be a master of the craft, and how we can apply some of those lessons to our lives today and what we do in a lodge room today. There's a lot of things in Masonry that is essentially just allegory for different life lessons. And I think so many of them can be really instrumental in helping somebody in any career path that they're in.
Being a healthcare worker, you and I kind of have a similar area when it comes to dealing with a small niche of the public. I'm typically dealing with people in some of the worst moments of their life, or, worst mistakes of their life, hold my beer moments. But I know that a lot of the teachings that were instilled in me, a lot of the things about patience, about being charitable, about just being an upright standing man, if I don't walk into those situations with my head held high, like I know what I'm doing, my patients can't trust me. They can't trust that I know what I'm doing if I appear as though I am nervous or inept. It's kind of like, put your faith in me. And Gabe has said that in a previous, cast, that we would never announce ourselves that, hey, I'm a Freemason, you can trust me. It's more of, I'm a good man of good moral character and I'm going to take care of you. Put your trust in me. I would have to think that you're kind of in a similar situation, especially when it comes to working with children who probably have trust issues all of their own, that you give them kind of a good aura of someone who just wants to help them.
Yeah, I think that you really hit the nail on the head with a part of it, which is talking about one of the basics for eventually being able to petition the lodge, which is being a just, upright, and staunch young man. I feel like no matter what you do in life, there's a level to which you should recognize its importance to you. There should be some intrinsic motivation that says, by golly, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. And with Masonry, there's a lot of emphasis on that. And there's also a lot of emphasis on an ideal that is similar, but maybe in the opposite direction, which is what's within the length of your cable toe. So when it comes to our work expectations and our professional expectations, our professional management, our professional responsibilities, there's all these different things that we have to provide. When it comes to interacting with any demographic, we have to be able to provide to them some semblance of trust and faith and respect and safety. There's so much that they have concerns about that we are trying to address, whether in a niche manner or a more general manner, whether it's, kids having tantrums and parents on the verge of tears themselves, or somebody who's got a broken bone and they're really struggling to be able to maneuver into any of the positions to try to get an x-ray because that's what they need to figure out exactly what's wrong, to get the help that's going to help them heal. So when we are in any of those situations, we have to have an air about us that shows, whether it's a client or a patient, that we can be trusted, we can be understood and respected, we are credible. We have a level of authority that's not just being lorded over their heads, but something that we offer them on a plate and says, if you'd like to sit down and eat, I have room for you at my table. And when it comes to the idea of the length of our cable toe, how much room do we have on our tables? Are we overwhelmed at work because we don't do as well at that point in time? And I think one of the things that help with DeMolay and Masonry is we learn to be aware of ourselves in that manner.
And another fun quote that saw on Facebook, I don't know if you agree or not, but it says that we as adults eventually turn into the adult that we as children would have felt safe with.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think the healthiest of us in terms of our mental space and our ability to take care of ourselves physically, we turn into people that we were longing for in our childhood.
I agree. So, moving back to the fraternity, what is your favorite part about Freemasonry?
The brotherhood. I really enjoy having a space or a group of people that I can hang out with, spend time with, which again, for me, it's the shared expectation that we all agree to meet on the level, for example. Being able to look around at a number of strangers and think to myself, it doesn't really matter what their life story is to me, because I can walk up to them and I can develop a friendship or relationship with them that can be beneficial in terms of healthy friendship, cordial, respectful ways that enrich my life or enrich their life. It's not exactly a manner of, what can I do for you, but it's more of a manner of what could we build together.
Are there any specifics when it comes to working with the other people in our fraternity that you really like about other Masons? What's your favorite part about working with another Mason project?
I really like seeing others' points of view, and for me, I'm the kind of person who's always looking for something along the lines of pattern recognition. So being able to hear somebody talk about their work or their profession, their life to some degree, maybe some of their problems, and being able to see how similar either their experience or my experience has been to other experiences I've learned about, and then being able to problem solve based off of that. For me, I'm a person who is very much about communication. So in order to communicate with somebody, we have to understand certain things. We have to be able to place the same amount of value on certain words, certain principles, certain ideas. So for me, it's kind of like when I have a conversation with someone, we are developing a building, we're developing a house, or we're developing a pantheon, and we're brick by brick, word by word, building this thing into this idea, into this concept. So being able to have that discourse, being able to bounce ideas off of each other and bring some sort of experience to the table that's hopefully relevant. That is one of my favorite things about Masonry, and that's one of my favorite things about working with other brothers. We all have a different walk of life, and I also love stories. I mean, I love video games, books, movies, all that stuff. So hearing someone else's story is really enriching to my own.
Brother Staler, I look forward to hearing more of your story. We're going to take a moment and go to refreshment, and when we return, Brother Gabriel is going to continue this interview. Stay tuned.
Are you in need of new Masonic swag to wear to your next function? Maybe you need a new hat or hoodie to show off your dedication to the craft. Check out our friends at masongear.com for some of the best quality and creative Masonic clothing on the market. We like the Blueprint Square and Compass hoodie and t-shirt. Once again, that's masongear.com. Thank you. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, listeners, to the Third Degree Masonic Podcast. I'm your co-host, Brother Gabriel Fawcett, and joining me again is Brother Ricky Staler. Brother Staler, welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me.
Brother Staler, I'd like to continue your interview with a couple of questions, if I may.
Of course.
So, in starting your Masonic journey, what sticks out to you? What do you remember most from when you became a Mason?
I think that what I remember the most from starting off my Masonic journey is probably the depth to which there's so much meaning behind the ritual. Because as I've stated before, and me and Brother Wilburn talked about my DeMolay journey and how there's a lot of similarities between DeMolay as a youth-centric version of Masonry to some degree. With DeMolay, a lot of the metaphors, a lot of the ritual work all has a variety of different meaning to it, but it's a lot more shallow than the depth to which the Masonic degrees have some meaning. I feel like with a lot of the Masonic degrees and the Masonic metaphors and allegory, there's so many more layers added to what a lesson could be taken from when talking about the Masonic degree work.
I agree. I think that's a good way to look at it, especially as someone who also comes from the DeMolay upbringing. So is that kind of touching on what you really love about the fraternity? Is the symbolism, the education, the connecting with teachings, something along those lines.
It is. It's definitely along those lines. And as I stated with Brother Wilburn earlier, one of my favorite things, absolutely top tier, most favorite things about Masonry is the brotherhood and the ability to walk into a room and develop a relationship that has meaning and depth and layers. For me, I believe that seeing the amount to which we can kind of dive into either the history or the moment, the metaphor, the man, the Mason, being able to see how much we can involve ourselves in this person's story or this interaction's story or this group's story is really important to me.
So you and I both have a lot of storied moments as Masons. We have a lot of proud moments as Chevaliers for DeMolay as well. But do you think you have a moment that sticks out in that maybe in the lodge, out of the lodge, at a brotherhood event, at a fundraiser, something that really sticks out to you and says, this is my proud, shining example of my time in Freemasonry? Or do you think that maybe you'll get there someday?
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure that there's any one particular moment that really stands out for me and strikes me as this is my pride in Masonry. It might be a moment yet to come. I feel like for me, it's more of the relationships that I develop with the other brothers. I mean, obviously, I'm proud to have you as a brother and Brother Wilburn as a brother, but there's been so many individuals that I've learned more about myself with by developing a relationship with them. A couple will come to mind, and one of them is Brother Jason Shamey. There was an event that I was excited to get involved in, and again, it's another instance where Brother Wilburn kind of pulled me along and led the way to some degree, and it's an event where the idea was Masons could come together, get away for the weekend, spend some time enjoying fraternal brotherhood, and spend some time also trying to include the new brethren into the Masonic fraternity. And with Camp Masonry, as it was called, there was a lot to do, and there was a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of ideas for where to steer or direct this event. And in talking to Brother Jason Shamey, I don't think I'll ever forget the conversations that we've had discussing his ideas of what a perfect Camp Masonry would look like. And I think it's the ability to have those types of friendships and see the moments and the things that they care about and being able to kind of relish in that glow to some degree. That's what I really enjoy about me. Those are the moments where I feel most proud, is just to kind of be there, be in attendance, be part of the audience and be like, wow, that's awesome. That's going great for you. I hope it hits all the things you want it to be. So being able to see, I guess, to some degree, the success or the attempt at success from my fellow brothers, that's where a lot of the pride comes in for me.
I really like that. That's a very personal, very heartfelt answer to that question. And I really like how you value the brotherhood in this fraternity. I think it's a great feature and a great quality to have as a Mason, is the value of the brotherhood.
Thank you, Brother Fawcett. I like to think that when it comes down to it, we can't open a lodge by ourselves. There's no degree upon which we can just simply show up, be here, open the lodge, to go about our business and close the lodge. We need our other brothers.
Of course, you and I both remember the skeleton crew DeMolay days, where we all fill multiple different positions and
3 people pulling double duty and barely getting by with 5 members to open or close a chapter.
Well, hopefully with some good work that we can do in the future, that we'll see a revival of DeMolay in the near future for both Ottawa chapter here in Genoa as well as Fort Finley in the 10th District.
Yeah, I think that would be really awesome.
So you touched on it a little bit, but do you have either a historic or current Masonic idol, or someone you really look up to, or someone you had a lot of mentorship from?
There are definitely a few individuals I had some mentorship from. The first couple that come to mind are, again, from the DeMolay days, which just goes to show how interconnected my Masonic journey is with my DeMolay journey. And, in my senior DeMolay journey now, as I am aged out of the fraternity, There was Christopher Gorsuch, who was a very dear friend to a lot of the individuals that I'm still friends with today from either DeMolay or Masonry. There was also an elderly, if not portly man by the name of Ted Korn that I still think fondly about. Both of them, I think, were very instrumental in helping me to kind of curb. As I had mentioned before, I was very, I feel like just obnoxious is the best way to describe it. A lot of energy and not a lot of motivation to put it forward in productive terms. Or find positive avenues to express all that energy, that thought, that opinion. And Chris and Ted definitely helped me to develop the sense of awareness to help me kind of tone that down, bring that into more respectful levels, help me to be more respectful to the people that I said that I wanted to care about, help me to learn more about what it meant to be more present in the moment and not try and steer it, take control of it, but just kind of relax and enjoy the ride. So early on, there was definitely some Masonic mentorship from those two individuals. And as I eventually joined Masonry, I would say probably just generally from my other brothers in the lodge, whether it was Northern Light Lodge or here at Genoa Lodge, just being able to participate in the fraternity and being open-minded, whether it's about the degree work or how to express something in ritual, or some little tidbits of history about the degree work and ritual, or some particular allegory that dates back to ancient Egypt and the ancient stonemasons. Being able to be receptive to any of this information or any of these opinions that I otherwise would not have been had I gone differently. I think those are all ways where my fellow brother can help guide me and mentor me. They don't necessarily have to be any kind of big wig or be an advisorship role, but I think just being receptive to the idea that there's something that I can gain from any interaction with my fellow Masons helps me to feel like I'm being mentored.
I really like that. I like how your journey kind of exemplifies our allegory of being rough and unhewn and being constantly through our teachings and through our education trying to become that perfect stone in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really good metaphor I hadn't even thought of till now, between the rough ashlar and the perfect ashlar. I mean, we might not ever receive or attain perfection, but the idea is that we have a goal, and the journey to get there is so important. And the number of hands that help to sand or carve or chip away to bring out the best in us, that I think is something really, really important, and we should always try to at least be a little bit more mindful of it. We're never here alone in our journeys, even if it sometimes feels like that. One of the nice things about Masonry is that we're a brotherhood. We don't have to be alone if we so choose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I want to kind of start shifting gears to kind of more of the future, kind of more of a speculative route with some questions. And we've been really positive up to this point, and I don't want this question to sound negative. I don't mean it to sound negative in any way. You and I both have a lot of experience with the fraternity. We've had a lot of different interactions with different brothers. We've had a lot of things that we've dealt with, succeeded in, and failed in. Is there anything that you think that the fraternity needs, or something that you would like to see changed, or a different way you might want to go about things?
I've got two things that come to mind, and one of them I think is a little bit contradictory to the tradition upon which Masonry has been following or building off of for so long. But I think one of the things that we should focus on more when it comes to our degree work or our ritual is when we say the phrase, we meet on the level. There's a few different lessons that we can take from that as Masons, but ideally what it comes down to is that no matter what we're doing and how we're doing it, we are of the same measurement. We have the same expectations. We measure up to the same standard. There's the same thing that should be valued no matter who's performing a task or who is trying to get something done, and just the fact that it's getting done is all that really needs to be recognized as saying this is a Mason putting in the work or the effort. I feel like we have, as a fraternity, developed a tradition where we kind of get away from that to some degree. And maybe we spend a little bit too much time on the ideas of the work that some of the Masons have done. And I think that it would be maybe more beneficial to kind of tone that down and dial that back a little bit to remember we all meet at the level. We all can go above and beyond in our accolades and the variety of different Masonic bodies, which is awesome. And one of the best things about Masonry is that there's a whole career that can be developed that is unique to the individual because there's so many different options to pursue. There's so many different appellate bodies to follow up with and have experience with, but I don't think that any of those appellate bodies or participation in any of those appellate bodies needs to be something that's remarked upon as often as it is, at least in my opinion. So again, just reinforcing the idea that we meet on the level. First and foremost, we're all Masons, and that, I think, is one of the things that really just needs to be acknowledged. It doesn't matter to what degree or to what extent we're Mason and what appellate body we've led or ran. There are definitely opportunities to recognize that. And I feel like one of the cool things about Masonry is that we have so many scheduled, full, thought-out, planned events where we get to recognize different Masons for their different accolades. But when it comes to like a standard meeting, I feel like it'd be easier, if not maybe more beneficial for the introduction of new Masons to just focus on, we meet on the level. This is brother so-and-so. And just let it be that. And the other thing that comes to mind when talking about maybe how the fraternity could be not necessarily improved is just trying to remember what is the length of my cable toe. We talk about a cable toe in Masonry as something that helps us to remember what our expectations are. That helps to guide us because it shows us where a boundary is. It shows us the length to which we can reach for things. It's kind of the cutoff point. And I feel like if we're able to remember whenever we agree to a task or we're put forth the opportunity to join a committee or we're thinking about what kind of event we want to put on, remembering what is the length of my cable toe, I think is something that could be really beneficial to a lot of Masons, because I do see that there are so many who kind of get stressed out with the variety of things that they put on their plate. And again, Masonry is kind of cool because you can craft your own career out of joining so many different bodies. I can't put enough emphasis on this. There's so many groups, which is cool. But there's an extent to which some people do get kind of burnt out. There's, again, these expectations on us for how to perform or how to act, and those are good expectations to have. But one expectation I think people should keep in mind when joining Lodge is that don't push yourself. Remember what's in the length of your cable toe. If you have a bunch of stuff going on, it's okay to miss the occasional meeting. It is a fraternal brotherhood. It's going to be here. We're going to be okay.
That is a great sentiment to have. And there are lots of discussions that can be had around the particulars of that. There are lots of different opinions about that, as we both know quite well.
Yeah, I feel like my opinion about what it means to meet on the level is a little bit controversial, especially because of some of the traditions that we have.
I wouldn't say controversial, because Masonry is supposed to be a place where men of different thoughts, different beliefs come together and are brothers and discuss not politics or anything that divides us, but can produce great results by us combining our different thoughts and different feelings on a certain issue to come to a joint conclusion, which I think is something we'll work on into the future, is applying maybe a more modern way of looking at what you're discussing and making that be hand in hand with a more contemporary or more formal way of how they go about that sort of topic. Well, Brother Staler, I really appreciate the time we've had together in this interview. I want to ask a couple closing questions just to leave the audience with some good thoughts for the future. So I'm going to tie a couple of questions together, get your thoughts on this, and see what you have to say. You and I both spent a lot of time in DeMolay, and we loved what it did for us into the future. And you and I both are living through a time where Masonry will be drawing in new people because as is an unfortunate fact of life, people are getting older. People are aging out. People are passing on. And the fraternity will be moving into the future, one way or another. It always does. And you've seen plenty of our friend group, myself included, start a family. Someday, God willing, they may choose to knock upon the door of Freemasonry. So I'd like to know what you think would be good advice to leave for young men of this day and age, or of middle-aged men who may be seeking some brotherhood, some proper ways of going about things, anything that you think might be good for Masons of the future.
If I were to give any future Masons or anyone who is thinking about petitioning the lodge or their local lodges any bit of advice, I think it would be that a Masonic journey, not necessarily yours, but any Masonic journey, is something that you can really sculpt or cater to your individual wants and needs, because there are so many different walks in life that come through the doors of the lodge. There's individuals who work a classic 9 to 5. There's individuals who work a night shift. There's individuals who work all different types of industries. There's individuals who have come from all different types of backgrounds, who have all different types of values or shifting priorities or different concerns, and they have an opportunity to express and pursue relationships here in the lodge and outside of the lodge after coming through the doors of the lodge. Different relationships that can help them to kind of navigate whatever spaces they have at home or at work or in their hobbies and interests. And if you're going to think about coming to lodge, that is my advice to you, is you have an opportunity to take something and personalize it. You have an opportunity to develop some friendships and some relationships that are going to be unique to you. They are going to be centric to your ideas and your values. And all you have to do is knock on the door, sign a petition, and say what your piece is. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. Make sure that you are able to open the door to your heart a little bit and the door to your mind a little bit as you open the door to the lodge.
I really like that. I think that's a great message for any non-Masons who may be listening, as well as any brothers listening who may just need to relight that vigor a little bit for the fraternity. So, Brother Staler, if you had to leave something behind, or leave an idea of what Masonry is to you, or what you are to Freemasonry behind, or a way for future Masonic generations to remember you as, how would you like that to be? What would you like your image to be to future Freemasons?
I think I would like my image or any parting piece of who or what I am to be a little bit of a mystery, actually. I would like to think that just as there are layers to a man, there are layers to the Mason that he is. And if I were to leave something behind, it would be a little bit of my essence and the variety of friendships that I've catered throughout the years as my time within the lodge as a Mason. And hopefully I could leave a few sprinklings of motivation to ask a couple of questions. Well, what was he like? What did he do? Why was it done this way? Or who was it who remembers this man? And you can get a different answer from different brothers and piece together a variety of different perspectives to find something that might be more accurate. So for me, I don't know, maybe something along the lines of a small personal Da Vinci Code of sorts, where an individual could learn about me from beyond my passing and learn about the things I cared about, learn about the people that I cared about, and learn about the way that I was able to prioritize the things that meant a lot to me in my life.
Well, Brother Staler, thank you so much for doing this interview with us today. I really appreciate it.
And I really enjoy the time that I've had. Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Third Degree Masonic Podcast. If you can find it within your heart to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, or shoot us a message on any of the other social media platforms, we would really appreciate it, and we would love to hear your feedback.
And remember, craftsmen, keep your working tools in order and always be on the level.
The contents of this podcast do not represent the opinions, regulations, and rules of the Grand Lodge of Ohio or any of its jurisdictions. All opinions are freely given by guests and hosts. Thank you for listening.